Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tn Twos Discgolf Podcast. We are back at it again with them white vans. My name is Daniel.
I don't even own a pair of Vans.
I'm sorry. I that was I don't know where that meme even came from. That was not scripted. That just came to my mind. Across from me is my co-host Ethan, and
Hola.
yeah, we got a lot to talk about this week. I'm gonna give you a quick little look at the set list. Um, we're gonna start by talking about All Stars, um, and then we are going to jump into the uh, Gannon news because, duh.
Yeah,
After
yeah.
that, we're gonna talk a little bit about our preseason power rankings, and of course, to go directly from that into LVC. Give our predictions heading into the season, see what that all is going to look like. But without further ado, first thing we'd like to do is thank our presenting sponsor this week, which is Lone Star Discs. And Ethan's going to tell you a little bit more about them for me.
Yeah. I got some exciting news about Lone Star as well, but they are a family owned and operated disc golf manufacturer located in Conroe, Texas. They pride themselves on being the only disc golf manufacturer that currently produces, stamps, and ships its own product directly from Texas. Their main focus is to provide consistent and high quality discs to golfers all over the world. Now, um, they do have some exciting new things coming down the pipeline. Um, One of them being the Delta plastic. Um, it is so what I've been told. I have not had my hands on it yet because obviously it's not released. However, what I've been told is that it is slightly less tacky than the Victor plastic, but it's more stiff. So it's almost a mixture of Victor and Alpha. So like their putter plastic and their uh, main premium plastic. Uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think it's gonna be very very efficient. I'll put it that
Yeah, I'm
way. I
interested.
think it's
Still waiting for Josh to reply on where it sits on the stability scale. Like
yeah
for example, I know like Victor is very true to the flight numbers. Alpha is true to the flight numbers, but a little more hook heavy, and then Bravo is of course the most overstable. So I'm interested to see where that sits on the flight, um, in terms of its stability compared to the other plastics. So yeah, we
yeah.
will see.
Um,
I haven't got that answer yet, but hopefully we'll have that answer for you next week. Right now, I think it's only going to be available in 5 molds, specifically in their mids, if I remember correctly.
yep. Also, along with this, on March 4th, they're dropping the new Brazos fairway driver uh, in Alpha Bravo. Um, and they're also going to be dropping some glow copperheads all on March 4th. So definitely stay tuned for that. Uh,
Uh,
Mark your calendars. We will also be talking about this a little bit next week, more than likely, and along with something else that's new that's coming up. Who knows? Um, I did want to hit on the flight numbers of the Brazos is 7502. So that super true fairway driver, slower speed, perfect gap hitter.
yeah, for any of you who are new on that Ranger team and you were just sitting there thinking to yourself, they just didn't have anything to replace that T-Bird in my bag going into the season. Well, now they do.
Now they do.
You're welcome.
Yep. It's gonna fill that slot very nicely. Um, yeah. All right. Greetings and hallucinations. Greetings.
Well, there's going to be a few today. Don't
Oh
worry, we're
yeah.
going to put our tin caps on
Yep.
when we get to the Ganon Burr stuff. So I'll tell you what.
Yeah. But again, thank you to Lone Star Disc for supporting and presenting this show.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. We can't wait to hang out with you guys here in just a couple of months now.
Yep.
It's right around the corner. It's not even a couple of months. It's more
Yeah.
like a
No.
month
Yeah.
and a half. Um, so we're pretty excited about that. Let's hop into the All Star recap. Um, First and I guess foremost, Team Ricky takes it down. Yeah, some of you guys might have some things to say about the quote unquote rickiness of the team. Um, we'll get into that a little bit later. And then on the other side, Team Katrina takes it down, beating out Team Paul's and Team Own, respectively. Um, if we're being completely honest, it really wasn't close on either side. Team Paul was eliminated before their final card even made it to hole 18. So, in other words, the results of their final card didn't even matter. Um, Team Own was a little bit closer, but it was only closer to the eye test. It really wasn't that close. I mean, they didn't post a single point in the first 2 days combined.
Right.
So it was pretty rough out there. It wasn't quite like last year where we saw a little bit of fireworks with Eagle and Calvin coming down the stretch. And I'm not gonna lie, it didn't help the event much not having some fireworks down
Yeah.
there at the end. Especially when one considers that to the eye test, we literally got a carbon copy of last year. I personally, while the All Star is a fun event, it's for the fans. I had a great time watching. I'm going to be the first one to admit that the fun that I had watching was purely early season live disc golf blinders. It's the same reason that we enjoy, LVC. When we look back at LVC halfway through the season, 3/4 of the way through the season, we realize, wow, LVC was not that great of a tournament.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that we're going to have that effect this year. Last year, it wasn't so bad because it was the first year we had seen All Stars in this format. But I took notice and a little tiny bit of offense to the fact that we got a carbon copy of last year, literally the script of how everything was supposed to be, copy, brought over to 2023, they hit paste. The skills competitions were all purely identical to last year. The basket locations were exactly the same for putting. The basket location was exactly the same for the skills throwing. Everything was exactly the same in terms of where they were standing. The trees they had to throw through and around were exactly the same. There might have been a slight difference in the fact that they changed the material for the ropes that were in between the trees.
Right.
But I had somebody comment that at me on Twitter when I said it was a carbon copy. They were like, "Well, they used a different material for the ropes and the skills competition, so it made it easier to see if they missed the Mando." And I'm like, if that's the only improvement they made, what are we doing here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, we can't expect the All Stars to be successful year in and year out if they're going to continually carbon copy. Um, if they want to do something like this where they use the same essential like formula year in and year out, then we need to have the event at a different location every year. Move it around, maybe a 3, 4, 5 year cycle. But if we're going to do the exact same things every single year, we cannot do it on the same exact course, on the same exact layout, because eventually people are going to be like,
Meh.
I'm just
Seen it
watching
before.
last year with new names.
Right.
That's it. So some of you might think I'm being hypercritical. I am. That's what I do. That's my job. I analyze things. Um, and I tend to overthink things like this, but I can tell you that that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I really wish that they had kind of analyzed it a little bit deeper before going into this event. Maybe they have an idea. Maybe they have a plan. I'm not going to say that this isn't without their plan. Maybe they have an idea that this is a mold they can use for 3 years before they recycle it to something new.
Right.
They might already have that plan. I'm willing to admit that that could be an option that they already know about. But from a fan's point, I have to say I was disappointed overall.
There you go. There you go.
In terms of individual play, let's talk a little bit about individual play. Um, you can't you always take what you see out here with a grain of salt, obviously. It's the first event of the year, so everybody's out there looking cold. They're looking like they are playing for the first time in a long time.
Right.
um, so um, you know, Paul overall, when he needed to look good, he did look good. But other than that, he looked pretty bad.
Right.
Interestingly enough, you could tell he was, he's like, man, I'd rather be going to get another drink at the bar tonight than probably doing this right now. Um, when it came down to singles day, he took it a little more serious, put together the throws he needed to. Gannon, absolutely battling through all kinds of adversity, including some mental adversity that we'll get into a little bit later. He looked really, really good down the stretch of the singles day, but overall, I mean, he looked okay. Calvin Heimberg. Calvin Heimberg looks deadly right now. He looked
Right.
very good all 3 days. If there was somebody that kind of, I would say put the rest of the field on notice just purely by play, it would be Calvin. Matty O looked like he wasn't taking it too serious, so I'm not even going to judge his somewhat subpar performance overall. Um, Chris Dickerson. Chris Dickerson looks as expected. He looks like he definitely took a break, but that he is getting into the swing of it really quickly.
Right.
Calvin Klein, impressed. He is
Calvin
definitely
Klein.
another.
Kyle Klein.
I'm sorry, I say it every time.
Every
Anytime
time.
I talk about Calvin within 3 names of Kyle,
Yep.
it always comes
No,
out Calvin
I
Klein,
mean, it's
and it's
to be
never going to stop.
expected. Yeah, it's to be
It's
expected.
if I will always call him Kyle Klein as long as I haven't talked about Calvin within 2 minutes of him.
It's
if
just
if I talk about Calvin first, I'm always calling him Calvin Klein. Sorry, not sorry. Kyle, he looked very good. He was well above where I expected him to be, especially considering the slow start we saw last year. Isaac Robinson, he looked rusty. He looked especially more rusty probably than some of the others. Joel Freeman looked as expected, very controlled. He struggled in skills, I guess, but it is what it is. Uh, James Conrad didn't look very good. I'll be honest. I was not impressed. Kevin Jones, I was not impressed. Corey Ellis, the surprise appearance.
did very
He
well.
looked very good, very good, very primed. I think to have a solid season. Ricky looked. Who knows?
Yeah, he wasn't there.
He wasn't there. Um, you know, uh,
You did miss
I
Mr.
will say
Lazat
I
though.
called him out on Twitter, and a lot of us called him out on Twitter on Friday. For not being present at the event, especially considering he lives in the area.
Right.
The fact that he wasn't at the event was a little strange, even if he, you know, wasn't feeling great, having some wrist issues, like he said. He did show up on Sunday, and he walked out with everybody, had some fun with everybody, hung out with his team. I still think he should have been there all 3 days, but kudos
I
for at least
agree.
making it out for the final day.
Yeah, I agree. Also, you missed
I
missed
did miss a name, and that was because he's the one that I want to spend the longest time talking about. Um, Simon Lizotte. Wow. Honestly, wow. If Simon had gone from Discmania to Discraft, or from Discmania to Innova, or something like that, and he performed the way he did, I probably wouldn't have blinked an eye. I would have said, he's just a little bit ahead of the game in terms of switching his bag and being comfortable.
right.
But considering that he is switched to the one technology of disc manufacturing that is inherently different, and some of you are going to be like, well, it doesn't actually make you go farther, doesn't it? The technology's a lot, sure, but it is widely agreed upon that MVP discs fly different,
Yeah.
regardless of what it is or why it is or how it is. They fly different. Everybody agrees upon that. The fact that he is as far ahead of the game as he is throwing MVP right now is superbly impressive. He threw shots that I wouldn't have expected. Now, it's not the toughest course in the world. There's a lot of, with somebody with his power, definitely he gets away with a lot on that course by taking some lines that maybe some other players can't. Taking some of the danger or some of the more technical lines out of play for the most part. But I mean, he executed time in, time out. The putter looked deadly, which I thought would probably be the thing he had the least trouble transitioning. Um,
Right.
even though it looked really bad in a lot of his vlogs, I was pretty confident once he sat down and threw that putter into a practice basket 2 or 3 thousand times, he would figure it out pretty quick.
Right.
But the throwing, man, the throwing was immaculate. Going out there and throwing 360s on an actual golf hole and landing remotely close to where he wanted to,
Yeah.
his first competition weekend throwing MVP. Come on, man.
What did so did Simon do the distance competition?
He did.
Do you know the feet that who threw the furthest?
I believe Kyle laid down the furthest, but he laid it down with a roller.
Roller. Do you know roundabouts?
Um,
600, 700.
I think I think Kyle's roller was pushing up towards the 700 mark. I think Simon's farthest shot inbounds was up in the 620
Yeah.
range, somewhere around there. And then he couldn't get another one inbounds after that. But I mean, not surprising. He got his one safe shot inbounds
And
that
then
was
went for
over
it.
600 feet.
Yeah.
And every throw after that was distance lines, which distance
Right.
lines are very difficult to throw when you haven't been practicing them, especially with a new brand.
Yeah.
So, not surprising. But the fact that he got a control shot down that fairway, over 600 feet on the first try,
Mm-hmm.
you know, still,
Yeah.
still very impressive.
Impressive.
So, yeah, and it ended up being pretty amazing. I think they needed every little inch of Kyle's roller to end up actually taking down Calvin and KJ,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly. Now KJ threw down a really really solid roller that just curled up early, and I think Calvin went all air shot.
Yeah.
So he went closer to that 650 mark though in the
Got
air.
you.
I think he got one out 620 630 if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I did not get to see that. So that was one of the things I was more excited to see. Um, yeah. So overall, your standouts were Simon and Calvin then for the
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah. Well, and
In
Kyle,
MPO. And Kyle?
yeah,
Okay.
and Kyle. I think if you're looking for anybody who impressed out there, I think that's it. I mean, Calvin shot a 10 down with a bogey and missing an 18-foot putt, which he probably doesn't do in a regular round,
Right.
and that was not on the same hole.
Well,
So,
there's that.
um, you know, yeah,
Yeah.
everybody else I think looked as expected to or worse. FPO, FAPoo,
Poe.
FAPoo. Okay.
Um, yeah.
um, FPO was a little more rusty all the way around.
Right.
Um, I think all of them definitely have a little bit of extra work going uh into LVC than those that group of MPO players do, but that's yet to be seen. Again, nobody out there was taking themselves too seriously on any given day. I don't think. FPO, I think, was even taking everything a little bit less seriously than MPO was that final day. Um, Katrina, she looked like Katrina. She definitely had some big misfires out there, but she had some really nice shots out there too. Own has secured herself, in my opinion, as the best putter in FPO yet again.
Right.
Um, I don't think that's changing. Evelina, Evelina was throwing like Evelina always does. She changed her putt as well. So if anybody did not notice, she's taken a lot of, or if not all, of the hyzer out of her putt. She had no confidence. um,
Right.
and she's always struggled with confidence to begin with, but I think taking out that hyzer is going to benefit her through the season. But you could tell she wasn't comfortable with her new putt style just yet. So she can figure that out. Watch out, she's going to be deadly. Um, Missy Gannon, she looked here and there. Sometimes she looked really, really good. Sometimes she looked really, really bad.
Right. Eh.
Cat Merch, uh, Cat Merch was definitely having fun.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, she was. There were a lot of times it felt like she just really went out there and threw as hard as she could wherever she was allowed to. And it got her in trouble quite a few times. But outside of the times that she was in trouble, she actually played very well. Hannah Blomroos, Hannah uh, has also been notoriously, struggling with her putt from time to time. Um, she struggled quite a bit on a few holes. And yeah, she's gonna need to take a step back and reset on the putting green for sure. Holland Handley was here and there. There were some times that Holland Handley looked like, "What are you doing, man?" And then there were some times that were just like, you play like that for a full weekend, nobody's even coming close.
Right. You seen spurts
So
of greatness there?
yeah, there were some moments where she really outplayed the field. And then Sarah Hokum, she was having a little bit too much fun out there. I think
Yeah.
she was more focused on being a good teammate than playing for herself, which got her in trouble on the final day, especially against Holland Hanley. But she definitely was having fun out there. I wouldn't take too seriously the results of her weekend. Ella Hansen scared me. She looked really bad in the distance competition. she, first of all, she wasn't getting anything out there like 350, and then she wasn't even keeping it on the fairway. And
Right.
she managed to clean it up over the course of the weekend. Um, but if there was one player I'm like, she took a longer vacation this off season than most players do, it was probably her. She looked like she hadn't thrown in about 3 months.
Yeah.
um, Now, Alexis Manhano, by comparison, looked really good until the day that she had to go up against Ella Hansen in the singles match.
Odd how
Um,
that happened.
I know, but she actually looked really deadly. She looks especially deadly on the putting green. I believe she actually took down the best score in putting for MPO and FPO collectively.
Impressive.
So really,
Impressive.
really impressive putting performance. And then her throwing is a lot like her sister's, just a touch less power.
Right.
So you know, Jennifer Allen, she showed some really, really solid like signs of confidence in her putting. And then she had some kind of old Jen Allen putts out there too. So
Mm-hmm.
it'll be interesting to see which ones we get on which weekends. Because if she throws down some of those confident putts we saw, she could play really well this year. And then Maria Oliva impressed me all weekend long.
Yeah.
That's
Just
it.
in the singles, uh Jennifer just managed to squeak out the win.
Yeah.
So yeah, that sums up your MPO and FPO All Stars. Um, especially the singles rounds.
Yep.
Now, oh, let's see, about dropped it. Are you wanting to cover the doubles?
Nah, I was kind
Nah.
of just going over their overall weekend
Okay.
performances,
Just
not anything. I mean,
individually. Alrighty.
doubles doesn't tell you much because the thing
It
about doubles
doesn't.
is just it tells you who played better as a team, which we're not going to see throughout the season.
Right. Yeah. I get that for sure. And there was nothing really in doubles wise that set anybody like apart. It was really close doubles wise. And when you get to the highest level, it's gonna be like that.
Yeah. And the other thing about doubles too is like if you create a deficit in doubles, you can play perfect for the rest of the round, and it still isn't enough to pay off.
Right.
Like Owen and Cat Merch played a beautiful back nine, and it just wasn't enough to get them back on the board. So I think we saw some really cool shots, but it's not stuff that I would really think too much about them taking into season because they're not. A lot of them are just not shots that they're going to throw
Right.
regularly, unless they're in second with 2 holes to go and they've got separation. Don't have to worry about dropping down the leaderboard from throwing some dumb shots. But other than that, that was All Stars. So I mean, it was a lot of fun to watch. I enjoyed it. I just it felt like I was just watching again last year with a couple of
Different
new
people.
names.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my biggest complaint.
But we have to remember that we enjoyed it last year. We just were expecting a little something else. That's all it was. It wasn't a bad event. It just
Yeah, I mean they've got a beautiful property out there. I don't know why we couldn't have, taken the opportunity per se to get out and use a different part of the course for the same challenges. You
right.
know what I mean? Like how interesting would it have been to throw a distance competition on hole 17? With that big giant uphill.
Yeah.
Who's going to be the ones who are going to get all the way up that hill? Who's going to throw some safe shots in the middle that got really good distance and then lay down the rollers to get over the top of the hill?
Right.
Like that would have been really cool to watch. I know there's ifs and ands on, well, it's distance competition, rollers here, rollers there. I kind of thought the same thing last year, but then I got over it. Um, because
You
number
tend
one,
to
it's
do
all
that. That's
stars.
fine.
Well, like it was after watching it and seeing how small the fairway was that
Yeah.
it was like, okay, I understand why rollers are
Yeah, it's
okay.
I mean, it's pretty it's got to be pretty accurate. You got to
Yeah,
you can't just willy-nilly a roller out there.
exactly. I mean, you're talking. I mean, Kevin threw one out of threw a roller on all 6 attempts and threw one that was a good distance, a competitive distance, and safe,
Yeah.
and that was it. So, I think when you're talking about the fairways that they had to hit for that distance, the rollers are just fine.
Yeah.
It's not like it's all that much easier than throwing an air shot or anything like that.
I agree. All right. So now,
Is it time for the news of the week?
yeah, I think so. So let's
All right.
preface this first, right? By what we had learned last week. Um Starting off, we had knew that Gannon had announced that he was leaving Prodigy, correct?
Yes.
Um, we had said that if he doesn't announce a sponsor by All Stars, he was either one, trolling, or two, had a falling out with Prodigy.
Yeah.
Um, well, he shows up to All Stars putting, um, well, not putting, but bagging unmarked discs, discs with stamps that were wiped.
Yeah, and
Um,
to preface this as well, it had quote unquote leaked through some of the guys at Foundation, particularly Trevor, I think was the one who actually tweeted it. That he not only showed up with wiped discs, but he showed up with a duffel bag of wiped discs. So not like a backpack or a cart or something like that. No, a duffel bag, a blank, unbranded duffel bag of wiped discs.
yeah,
And that set the world on fire. The
right.
disc golf world kind of lost their minds for a little bit. I was of the opinion, so he went out after that and he did his putting competition. All of the putters were wiped or they had the Gannon Burr logo as opposed to any other logos, right?
Right.
I was of the opinion that, okay, that fine. I understand that if there's an announcement coming, maybe that was just a little bit of like to get the internet talking, like, well, what was he putting with? And it worked. If
It did
that
work.
was
Yeah.
the goal, that is what the entire internet was talking about. The amount of tweets I saw where it was like, what was that beaded putter he was putting with, huh? Saw that tweet 100,000 times. Um, and so I kind of came out and I was like, maybe it's a part of the plan. But I came out with a tweet that basically said something along the lines of, hey, if the longer this weekend this goes and the next week goes and we don't hear about a new sponsor, um, the worse this is going to look for Prodigy.
Right.
Because it's basically going to verify that this is a falling out. It's one thing to get through the putting competition, but if he goes out and he doesn't announce a sponsor by the time he's actually throwing a bag out on the course,
Yeah.
it's going to look bad. And I don't see anybody losing here except for Prodigy. Well, fast forward, um, we couldn't really determine. There was also a post online, of course, that um, Gannon Burr was holding. He wasn't actually throwing in this from what we could see, but there was a post of him holding a Lone Star Warbird.
Yes.
Okay, that leaked around. That got around all of Reddit and Twitter and Facebook, and that was before the All Star event. So fast forward all the way to Sunday morning. Um, News broke via Ulti World Disc Golf with the title "Prodigy sues Gannon Burr for breach of contract."
Yep.
And I mean, if you were wondering what it looks like when disc golf internet gets hellfire thrown on it. That's what it looks like. That is that is exactly what it looks like. And I'm gonna go through a little bit of this article. I'm gonna try not to read too much of it, but I'm gonna try to like hit the hot points. Okay.
All right.
I got a handy dandy sheet here. I tried to highlight some of the important stuff. Um, this was written by Charlie Eisenhood and Christopher Wicklund with Ultiworld. So just to preface where this article initially is coming from. In a stunning development in professional disc golf, Prodigy Disc, otherwise known as PDI, has filed a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court against Gannon Burr for attempting an early termination of his endorsement contract with Prodigy. The Georgia-based manufacturer lawsuit seeks to bar Burr from working with or promoting a competitor and requires Burr to fulfill his Prodigy contract through the end of 23 and asks Burr to pay monetary damages to Prodigy. Um, in that article, if anybody actually goes to that article, you can click the button. There's actually a hot link built into that filed a lawsuit. You can click that. That'll take you to a public version of the filed lawsuit.
Right.
Okay, so this is not quiet. This is public
Yeah,
information
this
at this
is
point. Everything that we talk about today, besides what we start talking about speculation, this is public. Okay, we're not. This is nothing is really in the air. Okay.
yeah.
The dispute appears to have developed in the past few months and swiftly accelerated into the legal maneuvering earlier this year. Burr and his mother basically reached out to Prodigy in November 22 and requested that he be released from his contract. According to the filings by PDI, PDI responded, expressing a willingness to restructure and renegotiate the deal. Then, on January 13th, Burr delivered an email notice to PDI that he was invoking a 30-day clock to terminate the endorsement contract on the basis of multiple material breaches. For anybody wondering, a material breach is basically something that's specifically listed in a contract that is not met. And you know, that could be partially, fully, it doesn't matter. If it's in the contract, it has to be met to a T. Okay. So that's what they're calling a material breach. PDI's attorneys denied these breaches, but Burr's lawyers followed up on the 13th of February, claiming that all cure attempts had failed and termination was effective immediately. For those of you who remember, that was the same day, in fact, that he posted that he was leaving his sponsorship with Prodigy.
Yes.
Okay. So, first allegation in the breach of contract. We'll talk about this one first. Um, Burr did not receive a PDGA Rookie of the Year commemorative disc despite promises that he would get one.
He deserved one.
This one's this one's been if ands and buts. There's been a lot of kind of going back and forth. Prodigy responded with, "This was not part of the contract. We are not legally required to fulfill this." Is their official. They also stated, "We have released 2 discs with his signature that included Rookie of the Year." Now, that is not a commemorative disc. I think we can all agree that a disc with a signature is called a signature series disc and not a commemorative disc. I think we've all seen enough commemorative discs in the last year to know what a commemorative disc looks like.
Correct.
So, regardless of the point, number one, it sounds like it's not part of the contract. And keep in mind, the contract itself has not been released. It is an exhibit in the filings that will not be released for public viewership until certain criteria are met in the court. And it's also possible that it never actually becomes public to our eyes because it involves a minor. So just keep that in mind that there could be something that states because it involves a minor that we will never actually see the public filing of that contract.
Right.
It will be brought up in court legally. So, if we ever hear about it, there could be redacted versions of it that we see, but we will never see the full contract likely. Um, so allegedly, he was promised one. It wasn't written in the contract, so their stance was that we said we would do it, but we're not legally required to do that. So, sorry. Bird did not receive a regular sales report to verify the royalties of the disc sales. "Quote unquote, my mom and I were told that we could see those at any time, but they've never been sent to us, even though Prodigy knew that it was very important to us." Uh, they took a stance that this was also not in the contract, and also that they would never be required to give sales reports. We don't even know why anybody would ask for sales reports, is kind of the way that they put it. That is not verbatim, that is paraphrasing and adding
Right.
a bit of tone, but essentially that's what they said. So that's interesting. Um, Number 3, Bird did not get to select which signature disc he would receive, and that he was promised 2 but only received 1, which has negatively impacted his potential earnings. Um, it was noted by PDI in their filings that you can't. We never promised that you would get to pick it. We never promised a second one in the official contract. So both of those, again, we don't have to meet. Number 4, Prodigy's disc quality is poor and the molds are inconsistent, and that he made such complaints as far back as 2021, with the flashing being particular quality control concern. This is kind of the big one.
Yeah. I mean,
And this is the big one because this isn't really contract related. This is just a claim.
hmm
Uh, and I don't know why Prodigy made a point to actually like emphasize this in their filings, if I'm being completely honest, but they did.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, the best thing that I can say is just that they decided that if this was a concern, then he should have told us sooner. Well, he alleges he did tell them quite a while ago. So
right.
that's going to be a big he said, she said. Also, quality of product is not necessarily something that's ever stated in the contract, so I don't know how that's going to hold in court. Um, However, again, I don't know why they made such a public point in terms of like really specifying this in the contract, because all they do is negatively call out their own product in court,
Yeah.
regardless. Um, so I don't know why they put such emphasis on that. And then there was another that he was owed a $500 unpaid bonus. Um,
None of this looks good
the
for
quote
Prodigy. Like,
the quote unquote is that they have rectified this. Now, uh, in response, Prodigy sought to resolve or cure the alleged breaches and rely on the endorsement language providing. They paid the $500, sent him sales reports in their and in their court filings said that the signature disc and rookie of the year commemorative disc complaints were not breaches as they were not specified in the contract requirements. In response to claims of poor disc quality, Prodigy wrote, PDI stands by its products and takes pride in the care devoted to creating discs of the utmost quality for the top performances. We are troubled and confused by your sudden issue with the quality of these products that you have brought such great success thus far in your career, and hope this concern was not fabricated merely as an excuse to avoid your duties under the agreement. I want to start there
yeah,
before
that's
we get into anything else in the contract, because let's start. Before we go anywhere else into the contract, I want to talk
yeah.
about our personal experiences with Prodigy. You've thrown Prodigy before. I've thrown some Prodigy before. I currently have 0 Prodigy in my bag.
I have
You
0.
currently have 0 Prodigy in your bag. So we are coming from a standpoint of not a group of people who love Prodigy by any means. I don't necessarily hate them by any means, but what are your feelings about the quality of their equipment?
Well, I mean, the reason that I don't use Prodigy is because back when I was forehand dominant, their flashing would cut me every time. Every time. Their disc is horrible with flashing. Like I mean, as soon as I read that in there, I was like, well, duh, everybody knows that. That's why a lot of Prodigy throwers keep some sandpaper or uh, Scotch Brite in their bag. Like that's just a known thing. Um, I mean, should the disc be like that? No. Is it gonna happen from time to time? Yes. Uh, it's it should
But
have been
from
fixed,
from from
but
the standpoint of like from time to time versus all the
all the
time,
time.
like
And
I have a couple of discs from Lone Star or from Innova or from Discraft even that have bad flashing on them.
yeah, it
But
happens.
we're talking about 1 out of every 10 discs that I have flashing I need to sand off. Every single Prodigy driver I've ever picked up had flashing that needed to be sanded off if I was ever going to throw it.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's definitely a consistent flashing.
And
Um,
then there's also the complaints as well about I've heard many people that have complained that their plastic also deteriorates over time even when stored properly and not being used. Generally, the biggest complaint is that as it dries out, if it dries out, it creates a white powdery film as the plastic begins to deteriorate. Have
hmm.
you heard about that?
So I have heard about this, but I don't personally own any Prodigy that's doing that. I have some Prodigy discs, and they're all older.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily doing that. I don't know if it's a certain brand, like certain plastic that's doing it. Um,
Or if it's a certain region, if we're talking like if this is only a
yeah,
low humidity climate kind of a
correct. Yeah,
problem.
it could be something to do with that too. Um,
For
but
reference, I have never experienced this. However, I've seen enough of it that I believe that there is a possibility
right,
that it might be true.
yeah. No, I've seen pictures and everything.
And
It's just
I want to say that also I've heard this claim about Prodigy plastic well before
before
this
this.
weekend.
Yeah, yeah. All of
Like
this stuff has been
I've
before.
heard that plastic deteriorates and leaves a powdery substance on the surface. Months ago was the first time that I heard it. A long, long time ago when we were all talking very good things about Prodigy and what they were doing
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
I know they had talked about a certain plastic that Innova does as well that was doing that. Um, so it could just be a climate thing, or it could be a cheaper material.
Could be.
We don't know.
Now, last but not least, in terms of this dispute, from a not so like um, scientific standpoint and a non-biased standpoint as well, I think it's important to note that Prodigy is also currently the only known company that directly outsources their manufacturing.
Yes.
Um, of the major brands. I'm not going
Right.
to sit here and comment about Joe Schmo and the Wibble Wobbles because I don't know nothing about how they make their plastics. But of the Power Five or the Power Tens, whatever you want to call it these days, as disc golf grows, they're the only company that outsources.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter where they're outsourcing to. Doesn't matter what country the origin is. The fact is,
They're
they
outsourcing.
are outsourcing,
Yep.
and they are, you know, they're the only company who at least either admits it or the only company proud enough to say, well, you know what, we outsource, and that's okay. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that. If you're going to outsource. If the quality of the product that comes through is fine, then that's great. Outsource as much as you want. But
Yeah.
they have notoriously had struggles with the quality of their product before outsourcing. If you are struggling with the quality of your product before you outsource and then you outsource, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse.
I
Okay.
agree.
Outsourcing almost always reduces the quality of your product. So if you don't have the utmost high standards of your product before outsourcing, it's not getting any better. Okay. In my personal experience, as we talked about, I've thrown a couple of mid ranges, I've had a couple of putters in the bag, and I've had a few drivers. Um, I haven't thrown a putter or mid range probably since before I moved to Tennessee, so it's been quite a few years. And I've thrown a couple of drivers in the past few years. All of them had awful flatching. I had one that I would throw it once or twice in a round, and it would leave me a blood blister on the tip of my finger every time I threw it. Um, and it eventually became something that I threw in the water in a tournament because I had nothing better to throw there.
Yeah.
um, if we're being completely honest. Now, the other thing that I really struggled with as well is the consistency of the stability of their discs. We complained a lot last year when Innova had that huge falling out where all these players were leaving and this, that, the other. I talked about the consistency of Innova plastic being probably one of the worst on the market.
Yeah.
It doesn't even come close to Prodigy, but I had not thrown enough Prodigy to make that type of a comment. However, I've seen enough of it and I've experienced enough of it that I feel like we can at least say something in terms of this Burr accusation that I mean I've had a couple of different molds from Prodigy that were completely identical, fly like two completely different drivers. If we want to talk about it, we'll talk about um like Chris Dickerson's forces. Now, one of the things you have to remember about his forces, you're talking about a pack of 5 discs where he was able to go into the factory and pick whatever the heck he wanted. As long as it wasn't deformed to the point where it was illegal, he could pick whatever he wanted. If
Right.
he found a force that was manufactured incorrectly that flew different, that's fine. He has a force that throws like it's a 13.5 -3.1. Okay, and we all know how overstable forces are supposed to be.
Right.
But the thing is that 99% of the time, if you go to the store and you buy a crystal force is going to fly straight and overstable. Okay, it's going to
Yeah.
be a meat hook, right? Prodigy,
Yeah, it's a flip of a
all over the
coin.
place.
I do think that as that was like their response, um, it kind of claiming that it was a cover story. I think Gannon hit him in the feels a little bit. It was like
Yeah,
that sounded like it started off professional, and then they got more upset the longer that they typed that that response.
they got they got
And
so mad so
they
fast.
did, and they were like, "I hope this isn't just a cover story, for you not wanting to do your job." And it's like, bro, you obviously just sit at a desk and you don't throw. You do not throw your own plastic. Like it's kind of
Yeah.
obvious. You definitely
Now,
got your feelers touched on.
I want to point out that later on in the court filings, they made a particular point to mention under the mere cover story thing. They did say later on that from 2016 through the end of 2022, Gannon never once complained about the quality of our products. Even though clearly stating in the accusations was that he made a claim as far back as 2021. That would be interesting
Yeah.
because if that claim was made and they have the ability to prove that claim was made, then if, and I do believe I remember that they requested in the filings is a jury trial, so it doesn't matter how large the jury is.
Right.
Could be 3 people, 5 people, 10 people. That in and of itself, regardless of anything else in the contract, could create what is called in the court of law reasonable doubt. If you prove that we did make this claim back in
June
2021, July
2021.
of 2021, June 2021, that we complained about the quality of your product, that we were having an issue with your product, and you make and they draw that court filing now note out in the court of law and say, hey, didn't you say that we never received a complaint from this date to this date? But here's the official complaint right here. We sent it to you. You received it. You responded.
Yeah.
That's called reasonable doubt. And if
Yep.
anybody doesn't know what reasonable doubt means, it doesn't matter. Like if you create enough reasonable doubt, you could be 99.9% sure that he did it. But in the court of law, you are only supposed to vote in favor of conviction if it is 100%.
Yeah.
That's that could be the 0.01% that saves him in this case. um, interestingly enough, all right, we'll move on a little bit from the plastic stuff.
Yeah.
Further, PDI stands by the quality of its products, and the endorsement agreement does not grant GB the right to terminate it based on fictitious product quality concerns. Is the way they sum that up. The court filings also include an attestation from CEO Mark Anderson as to the efforts to renegotiate the contract. I asked Gannon that he was what he was seeking in terms of a renewed compensation. Um, and after these discussions, we made a proposal that included compensation packages that would approximately quadruple the compensation package of his current deal. I'm going to be completely honest. That's not probably not that much money. Okay,
Right.
we're talking about one of the things that was complained about was an unpaid $500 bonus. That quadruple was probably not that great.
It
They
probably
make
went
it
from
sound good by using the right keywords,
yeah.
but the actual monetary value was probably not all that fantastic. I'm going to point that out. Um,
If it went from 15,000 to 60,000, you are not and that's probably that's with compensation package probably including just more disc sales. Like
yeah,
it's yeah.
you went you went from well, even still, if you went from 25K to 100K,
Yeah.
you are probably at the very best matching what any other company is offering as a base guaranteed before incentives
Yeah.
right now, I would imagine. Um, so that was a little bit interesting. Anderson said he never heard a response on February 13th. Burr's lawyers sent the email that they had not been cured, besides the $500 in bonuses, and the contract was therefore terminated the same days when Gannon made his post. 2 days later, on the 15th, is when Prodigy officially filed its lawsuits. And the first hearing, considering the temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction, was held on the 16th. The court has taken it under advisement, and the follow-up hearing is scheduled for March 3rd.
Yeah, that's coming up. Um, so I did want to like kind of point out that Prodigy, um, Prodigy, when they tried to do this deal, like they tried to renegotiate, they waited until the last day. Therefore, I feel like were they trying to call a bluff
Uh, don't
or
don't take too much. So here's the thing: is that this article isn't doing a very good job of painting the timeline picture.
right?
According to the court filings, they attempted to renegotiate as early as when they asked for an out of their deal in November 2022.
Okay,
Okay, so allegedly, they offered a renegotiation that was not accepted by that February 13th, but they offered it much earlier than that. They attempted to communicate with them about it, and they were non-compliant, if you will. Um, so 6 to 1, half dozen of the other. Read the court filings to get more on the exact, at least what PDI complains. Keep in mind, all of the documents that are available in public court documents right now are everything written from the perspective of PDI,
right,
i.e., Prodigy. Okay, there's nothing in there that is directly spoken by a Burr lawyer or Burr family yet.
right.
Okay, this was all filed while he was in Arizona. Okay,
Yeah,
so there has not been an official response, and this is why I had a lot of people tweet things at me like, I don't see how Gannon, given everything I've read, I don't see how Gannon has a leg to stand on, and this, that, and the other, blah 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 blah. We don't have the full story yet. Regardless of what we want to say, we are in a he said she said battle where we have he said and we haven't even heard she said.
right,
Okay, let's start there. I'm not going to pretend to sit there and tell you that I think that one or the other of them can or will win this. But given what we see in the court documents, yeah, I would say Gannon probably won't win this case. But we also can't see the official contract, and that's a huge deal. A huge deal. Okay. Later on, um, Prodigy is asking the court to require Bird to remain in his contract. Anderson stated, in terms of sales figures alone, I estimate PDI would lose up to $1.5 million in sales without GB under contract through the end of 2023. Uh, we'll get to
mm,
that.
yeah,
Anderson went on to say that the impact of losing Gannon Burr to one of our competitors would go beyond sales figures. Already, PDI's brand is suffering in the marketplace. Many consumers suspect that something is wrong with PDI because GB has announced that he will no longer be affiliated, even though we have proudly announced him to the core team. It's amazing that they have been able to estimate their losses for an entire year's worth of sales in under 24 hours of response from the general public.
yeah.
Absolutely outstanding. I whoever is their mathematician, please hire them
Yeah,
because that's impressive. Because I'm sorry, I'm gonna just shut you up at Prodigy right now and look at you and say this. You're going to tell me that off of 1 days of response in social media, where something like this is likely going to be forgotten for the most part in a week or two, if you didn't, provide this lawsuit, we would have said, "Oh, he's going to a new sponsor." It would have been forgotten. Nobody would have been talking about the quality of your product after a week or two. And you're going to tell me that you are comfortable stating an actual dollar amount on how much you're going to lose after 24 hours before you wrote and took this to court? Come on, man.
I mean,
Come on.
yeah,
And also, oh no, and also, if you are so worried about $1.5 million in sales losses, why is your response to he asked for a commemorative disc? Well, it wasn't in the contract. Give the man a disc.
right.
You're worried
Make
about
yourself
$1.5
more
million
money.
in sales and you're not even going to give him the commemorative disc that you promised?
He
I don't care if
is
it was under contract.
he is your
It doesn't make
prodigy. Like that.
It makes absolutely no sense that you're going to sit here and feign these loss in sales when you couldn't even come through with a second Tour Series disc. You couldn't let your best player on the team pick his second Signature Series disc, whatever he wanted it to be, I would have been like, bro, you are the face of this company right now. Here's your second disc. What do you want? What do you want the stamp to look like? What are we doing?
Yeah,
What are
let's
we doing
work
for you?
together. Let's get this.
Because
It's
because here's the thing, you're gonna sit here and pretend like, well, it wasn't in the contract, so we're not required to give it to him. Okay, great. You said you would do it, allegedly. And let's even assume that you didn't say you would do it. For the sake of the conversation, let's say you didn't say you would do it. When his lawyers came through and said, this is what we expect, and you really wanted to keep him, why wouldn't you have just immediately said, here's a commemorative disc, here's a Tour Series disc, we'll even let you pick the molds and let you pick the stamp.
right.
If you really wanted to keep him,
Instead, let's just
$1.5 million lost in sales, which you couldn't even offer a single extra Tour Series disc, even if you didn't promise it from the beginning.
yeah. No. Uh and to think of the 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 so-called compensation package, I'm sure didn't include any of these disc sales, whether he makes 1% off of a disc or whatever it is. You know that that wasn't included. They didn't
No,
think about
absolutely
this
not.
at all. This was clearly a number that they tried to throw out that way they could sue for as much as possible. Um,
So I have to ask you, did you see so the next part of this article? um,
yeah, yeah.
First of all, sorry for getting so heated. Anybody who's like, wow, this guy's really like, listen, all right,
I
I just
wonder.
think it's silly.
Yeah.
I think it's silly.
So
Um,
chat's
I'm
chat
I'm
chat's
I'm
asking.
gonna go out there and say, but before we get to chat, I'm gonna
Yep.
go out there and say, like, I agree with a lot of you people who are gonna, come back at me, and the first thing you're gonna say is, well, I mean, Gannon Burst signed a contract; he should be held to his contract. Sure, I completely agree with that. But I also think that a company who is expecting to rake in $2 million on this boy, this 17-year-old boy, in the next 10 months, can offer basic compensation.
Right. They're the NCAA before NIL. It's fine.
I think
Um.
I just I think that this is we're getting into the semantics of whether a contract is a lot of I'm only saying this because I've had a lot of people say something similar to me on Twitter when I wasn't so heated. But a lot of people have said stuff like that, and I just want to say we're debating the semantics of morality on either side, and only concluding that the morality of leaving a contract early is not as bad or is worse than a company not compensating their greatest asset. Because here's the thing, we live in a generation where quiet quitting is a thing in place. Silent quitting, whatever you want to call it, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Where people are like, I'm gonna walk in and I'm gonna do the absolute bare minimum and blah 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 blah. We have created stuff like that in our generation, and we're gonna sit here and be like, well, Gannon should be held to his contract. What?
Yeah.
What? I agree. I agree he should be held to his contract, but I also agree that Prodigy should be held to a higher moral standard when dealing with a 17-year-old kid who is literally the face of their company right now.
Well, and it's not like they were trying to hold him to the contract originally, right? I mean, they just assumed that he was going to stay. He is the one that filed breaches first, right? He is the one that contacted them about breaches of the contract and they needed to be settled and they were not and or did
Yeah.
not agree with said breaches.
Because
So,
let me put it this way too. When you think about that, if you're Prodigy, you get that email, and supposedly, if they said, "Well, we tried to renegotiate," well, instead of renegotiating, why don't you just first start by settling the 5 things in that email,
yeah, boom, 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 boom,
and
boom.
then he can't leave even if he wants to because, well, listen, this wasn't even written in the contract, but we settled it for you anyways because we care about you, and we're still offering to renegotiate your contract.
Right. That happens in all sports.
That's all they needed to do.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't turn into this where we're talking about the morality of a billion-dollar company.
Yep. No, I completely agree. Um, so Chad is saying, I wonder if this will cause their battalion and street teams to lose members.
We will get
And
there. I actually don't want to say anything about that because I have put out a lot of posts on Twitter about how our people are responding to this in general. And so we're actually going to get to that. So I don't want to spoil it.
okay, hang in there with us, chat then.
Okay, continuing on. So the next part, Prodigy's court filings include copies of social media posts, including those from Reddit and memes from Instagram. Anderson wrote that his declaration that one post particularly was troubling and worrisome to me is a meme of PDI's logo on a tombstone with Gannon Burr's smiling face photoshopped onto a body standing over the gravesite, indicating Gannon Burr's departure would essentially destroy PDI's business.
I
And
mean,
if you guys haven't seen the post, it's linked in the article.
yeah. Thank you,
If
Ulti
it's
World.
not still linked in the article, I mean, I took a screenshot. You can tweet me about it, and it's still up. I don't think that they've been requested to take it down. I don't think they can.
Yeah.
Um,
No.
but
Shout out PDGA
as long as
Rodman.
they're not I think as long as they're not monetizing it, it's fair use. So they can't really be forced to take it down. I don't know about that for
Yeah.
sure. So don't quote me on it. But they
Oh
literally
god.
literally sourced an Instagram post by somebody who is not associated with Prodigy in
Organon.
a lawsuit against Gannon.
Yeah.
This guy is not related to them or Gannon in any way, shape, or form. And they're like, we're suing you for 1.5 million in damages because of this Instagram post. Come on, man.
Oh
I
man.
just thought that was really, really funny. He later on went to say the court should not sit idly by and allow Gannonburg to publicly humiliate PDI to decimate its business in a manner that he seeks to do now.
And it's not
Do you
even
really
him.
think?
Like it
Do you really
wasn't him.
look who filed the lawsuit? A public lawsuit that would be visible for everybody to see. I posted somewhere that I was like, I don't understand why they took this lawsuit public, and they were like, somebody responded, "You don't take a lawsuit public; it's already public. It's the law. It's public." And I'm like, it's a phrase, and I mean, I don't know why they filed this lawsuit when they basically have incriminated themselves so far throughout the entire process of everything I've read. And this is summarizing. This is the article from Ultiworld. For anybody who was wondering, I actually read because I was at work on Saturday and I didn't get a single call the whole day. I read the entire court filings. So I know a gist summary, at least, of what everything is said. Prodigy incriminated themselves just as much as if they win this case, it doesn't matter because they have incriminated themselves so heavily.
Yeah.
It's actually hysterical. So what's next? Um, District Court judge assigned to the case has actually changed. If anybody's wondering, the article only references Steve Jones. He was not the original. It actually was motioned to change. It was accepted. Steve Jones is the second judge officially assigned to the case. He declined to issue an immediate ruling on the request for a temporary restraining order. Instead, there will be a follow-up hearing in 2 weeks. Legal experts told World that not getting an immediate ruling is typically a sign that a request for a temporary restraining order won't be granted. But a preliminary injunction would also bar Burr from signing an endorsement contract from another company. Yada yada yada. Um, so that's essentially the article. I think that's enough of the particular mumbo jumbos that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the ramifications for Prodigy directly. So we can actually go ahead and head directly to this question from chat now. I wonder if this will cause their battalion and street teams to lose members. I put out a post on Instagram, or not Instagram, on Twitter, excuse me, um, that directly asked uh, anybody. This was open for anybody to respond to. This was not necessarily, only our followers or this, that, and the other. I had 8,000 views on this, so a lot of people saw it. I had something like 50, 40 responses. Okay. I'm going to take you through my responses because I do think this is really interesting. So I want everybody to kind of just hear what it really sounds like. So the actual question is, serious question for anyone who currently throws Prodigy: are you planning to take it out of your bag? Um, this is probably the most common response that I saw is, I'm not taking anything out yet. I'm watching to see how it all shakes out. Okay.
Right.
That was from a at the Sparky Josh. Narpar Disc Golf stated, waiting for more details before coming to a conclusion. This is all still he said, she said. I replied with, I'm not sure it's really ever going to be too much more than that.
Yeah.
I had somebody coming back, got a couple of their discs, don't intend to get rid of. I putt with PA threes and have for years. I'm not planning on changing it. They just work for me. That's fine. Um, let's see. Somebody else said, yeah, I putt with PA threes, probably looking to find a different putter now. So any suggestions would be great. I had somebody respond is there's nothing a pro does that would affect my purchasing habits. And I responded with, what about a company's public morality? Because I wasn't really asking about
Right.
whether you were following Burr out. I was asking if what Prodigy has done has left a taste in your mouth that you can't resolve, or so on and so forth. They responded to it, everybody is out for themselves and it's not going to change. There's no public morality when money is involved. That's a pretty fair assessment. I think
That's
that
honestly not a
you
bad
can
response.
you can honestly make an argument that that's probably true. However, I think that more often than not, companies are fairly good standing.
Yeah.
There are some bad stories about Prodigy in the past and how they treat their players, and there's a reason why there is a circle door, a rotating door on their lobby. Okay, um, I'm just gonna point that out. Matt White, I've got Prodigy discs in 3 key slots. I'm not going to tank my game just to prove a point, but if I find something that would work well, I might switch them out. Here's one that's really interesting. This one's for you, Johnny. Uh, I'm not even gonna say his name just 'cause I don't want to incriminate him. But I'm sponsored by them. So far, what I'm doing currently is I'm removing all the stamps, getting a neutral jersey in a different bag. So basically, it sounds like to me he's probably on their lowest level team, whatever that is. He's probably required to throw a 40% bag or something along those lines. And what he's currently going to do is I'm going to get, rid of the proof that I'm throwing them, but they can't, come at me for not throwing them because they
Right.
are. Okay. That's
It,
very important.
yes, because that's he doesn't he sees it as an embarrassment at this point instead of being proud.
Yeah. Um, for
Or
anybody
she.
who knows this name, you might recognize this name. Jeremy London replied to me as my stepson had one Prodigy disc. He called it his water disc because it's the one he's willing to lose. That said a lot.
Yep.
That's it. That's what he said. If you don't know who Jeremy London is, look him up. But I'm really glad he's in the disc golf community and replying to us. It's really cool. Disc Golf Sean said, "Yeah, I am, though it's only a couple of discs. They were already on their way out anyway, so I guess it's really just a final nail in the coffin. I guess it doesn't really tell you a whole lot, but it's just one of those things." We had a couple other people basically kind of go on and say the same couple of things. I did get a couple more responses of Prodigy players. Um, that said something along the lines of, I don't see how this affects me directly. They've treated me well. Now, again, these are going to be your low level teams. This is here's a few discs a year. You have to throw 40% discs kind of people. Wear a shirt with our name, put Prodigy in a couple Instagram posts a year. Okay. I
Right.
didn't have any big Prodigy players. This is not Gannon level Prodigy players responding to me. But the general consensus is no, I'm not really planning to. But I am, I'm thinking
Open
I'm
to
going
the
to take a
idea.
look and I'm going to see how it plays out. And then you had a couple who were really hardcore, like, no, like Prodigy is my team. I'm with my team on this. Okay. And then you had a couple who were on the other side. I'm thoroughly embarrassed by it. But the
Right.
general consensus is that they're not going to be taking anything out. If something drastic happens, they probably will. They're not going to take anything out right now. Interestingly enough, I did one other post and this one was just a poll. And this one had over 250 votes. This was does the Prodigy lawsuit of Gannon irreparably harm any of their images? The options were just Prodigy's, just Gannon's, both, or it's just business. 62% of you voted just Prodigies would be damaged in this whole scenario.
Yep.
24% of you voted both. 14% it's just business. Did you do your math there?
Nobody said just Gannon.
Not a single person voted that just Gannon's image would be irreparably harmed by this. Not a single person thinks that Gannon was in the wrong to the point that he's the one who's going to take the fall for this.
Right.
Let that sink in for a second. Okay? I don't know necessarily what exactly that is supposed to mean 100% of the way, but I can tell you that the general community is siding with Gannon on this. There's a lot of people who think that Gannon was stupid for doing so and he will be just fine. There's a lot of people who think Gannon's going to lose this case. But for the most part, people are just like, Gannon's going to get through this, even if he loses,
Mm-hmm.
right? My personal opinion, my take of the situation is that Gannon's job this season has now become keep your head down, kid, let your lawyers do the work, and don't worry about it. No matter what happens, you're going to be fine on the other side.
Right.
Okay. That is what Gannon needs to do this year.
So I just for uh to spark something. Let's just say.
Oh,
Um.
I got something to spark later too, but I'll let you go first. I've been
Okay.
talking a lot.
um. He if he is to be required um to continue throwing under contract, throwing Prodigy and wearing Prodigy. Do you think it as long as it's a Prodigy shirt? Do you think that he puts something under Prodigy like Prodigy sucks, Prodigy hates me, Prodigy like
No,
that would be
no, absolutely not, because you create a defamation and libel case in that situation. Um, if you so you actually weren't watching, so I guess you wouldn't have seen this, but he did actually wear a Prodigy hat on Sunday,
yeah,
as well as he's also made a couple of posts on Instagram, clearly either hashtagging Prodigy or clearly showing a Prodigy logo.
yeah.
So he's doing his job right now. Um, if he gets released from his contract in some way, shape, or form, yeah, yeah, that could happen. I feel like his lawyers are smart, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
I say unfortunately because I mean his lawyers are smart, which
Yeah,
means that he's probably less likely to do something dumb like that.
yeah.
As fun as it would be to
It
see.
would be fun to see.
All right, now here's my to start a fire. Uh, chat, feel free to hop in on this one. Do you think that there is a chance that they are putting this lawsuit up, and they've if so in this article it didn't really touch on it, but if you read the court filings, the section where they're asking him or saying they want him to play out his contract is very long and very like it's long-winded, a lot of words. They were really particular about we want him to play his contract at Prodigy. I don't think so. First of all, I don't really think they do. Listen to what you're doing in this situation is you are directly alienating him, right?
Right.
You are making him hate you further and further in this process. Do you think that there's a possibility that they are pushing so hard to force him to play out the rest of his contract just so they can say something along the lines of, "All right, bids are open. Who wants to buy out his contract? We'll start the bids at $500,000. First one to pay us $500,000. We will all agree to terminate contract mutually."
I mean, I could see that very, very easily happening. um, and honestly, there's no way that Prodigy comes out of that looking good, to the public's eye. Uh, but I could definitely see them making a business move, saying, "Hey, money is money," as sort of a money grab is what you're trying to get at. And I could,
So I wouldn't call it a money grab. I'm gonna go backwards on that. Um, Here's the thing: is if you let him walk, you let him walk. You get nothing back.
right,
You push this lawsuit out, you require him to play out his contract, and then allow another company to purchase it. Remember that $1.5 million they were talking about? This is a way you recoup some of that. This is their way of saying, we're not going to get Gannon disc sales this year, even if he plays for us. What if we make some money back by allowing a buyout?
right,
So I'm not gonna call it a money grab. I wouldn't go so far. I would say this is just a business move at that point.
like to
I think
recoup.
the lawsuit itself is the money grab. Anything after that is just business.
I just, I honestly like, I could see that. I can, but the way that some of these quotes are worded is like they they might be on the verge of like not being here. Um, and I mean that. Like, if they lose, because they lost Katrina, they lost Chris, they lost Matty O, they've lost some very key players in the past couple of years.
Well,
Um, and none of those uh, benefited. Like, nothing happened to benefit them except for Gannon and Isaac coming kind of out of the woodworks. And
let's add to that too. I want to point something out. In the court filings, they said something along the lines. Now, we have lost Chris, we have lost Kat, we've lost a few other lesser known players in this process. Who have they added in that timeline?
right,
Not a single player. They have brought players up from their lower level teams. They've
exactly,
increased some people. They have not brought in a single new level of talent. In the court filings, they explicitly said, we intentionally did not pursue these players, knowing the amount of capital that was going to be required to sign Gannon Burr in the future.
right,
First of all, if you only offered Gannon Burr quadruple in this restructure that you were talking about, quadruple what he's making now off of his rookie contract, his unproven rookie contract as a 14-year-old when it was signed, basically,
yeah,
and you offered him quadruple that, you're telling me that you didn't have you're estimating 1.5 million loss in sales. You offered quadruple of a rookie contract and you didn't have enough after losing Chris Dickerson and Katrina Allen last year. You didn't have enough to sign another player, even with that.
yeah.
That's a red flag.
Yep, 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 yep.
Red flag.
I sees it. I sees it. Um, I I honestly think, like, because it says several different times that it uh could be something that they can never recover from, or that it would be the end of Prodigy. Claiming that that it would be super,
It'd be detrimental.
yeah, super detrimental. Um, and I kind of, like, agree. I don't
Mhm.
I don't think that they could see. All right, so this is my point. I feel like without the lawsuit, if they just let Gannon walk in a couple of weeks, maybe a month, nothing ever is said. It just happens. Business is business. Gannon got a better offer. So what? Right? The kid is good. He deserves a better offer. Prodigy couldn't afford it. Is what it is. That doesn't mean that Prodigy is the bad person. Now, with them filing this lawsuit, they have become the bad person.
They've
Um,
become the elephant in the room.
yeah, that they've done this to themselves, even though they're blaming it on Gannon. And I.
Yeah. So even if they win this case because Gannon's
Right,
lawyers
they've
didn't do
not
their due
really won.
diligence or whatever, they lose. This is a win lose best case scenario.
Yeah,
And I've been
I
saying it
see
from the
it
very
a
beginning.
lose
I don't
lose
understand how yeah, I'm just saying the win is in if the
if they
case.
won the
If they
lawsuit.
physically win the
Right.
lawsuit, that's the win. And that's all the win is because you keep him along and you don't sell his contract. First of all, you sell his contract, you're going to be painted as greedy,
Yep.
right? You've already said it. Now,
Absolutely.
I know that if they sell the contract, they're making the right move. It's a good business decision. I'm not going to call it greedy, but the general public will.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to. That for the way that that's going to be perceived, it looks greedy, and that's what it is. So if they sell the contract, it looks greedy. Okay. If they buy him, if they keep his contract, they win the case, they keep his contract, he's going to do the absolute bare minimum required by his contract.
Absolutely.
And then what? And then he's gonna, who's gonna buy his signature series disc knowing he doesn't even want to throw that disc?
And I wouldn't even doubt if he doesn't. It doesn't even take. He might even take a break. Like, he just.
I know he won't.
I.
He's too young.
It would be
He's too young to
hard to
understand.
do.
He's too young to understand the gravity of the situation to the point where he felt like taking a break would be needed.
I just. if he
Because
wholeheartedly did not want to support Prodigy that bad, right? And they're technically being forced under the 2023 season. If he were to play, he would have to play as a Prodigy sponsored athlete.
yeah, but then you
He
just do your bare minimum. You wear
right,
the clothes, you throw the discs, you put the hashtag in your posts. Now, I'm going to say you're going to see a lot less Instagram posts if that happens. You're going to see a lot less YouTube videos if that happens. You're going to see the social media presence of Kona after she got made fun of for her performance last year,
yeah,
which is non-existent.
yep,
Okay? But he's going to post his minimum requirements, whether that's twice a month or whatever it is. I'm sure YouTube isn't even required in that deal.
probably
Instagram
not.
probably is. And then he's going to wear the clothes. He's going to do his press conferences when he needs to, but he's going to play. He's too young not to.
I feel like,
Players who are that young don't think about the business decision of not playing
but he
over not
has
playing.
lawyers to do business decisions for him.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, all they're going to do is they're going to look at him and they're going to say, "Look, I mean, you can't hurt yourself by playing right now."
Right. He can only
You're thinking about somebody who won the Heisman last year and came back for their junior season, and you know maybe they tweaked their toe. Well, you can't hurt yourself by playing. If you have a down season, you were injured. If you have an up season, you sell higher on the draft board. Okay, think about it from that perspective. He cannot hurt himself in the eyes of another manufacturer at this point by playing. If anything, it actually makes him look better and more desirable because
to another manufacturer.
he lost, and then he played it out. He did his job.
Yeah.
So I don't see. I've seen that theory a lot. I saw a lot of it. A lot of people really commented at me like, "Well, I think he should just lay low and not play out the rest of the season." I think that if you told me he shouldn't play until the lawsuit is resolved, I would say I agree with that. That's a possible, maybe that's a good thing to do. That could be a smart move, but to not play the entire season, because here's the thing: Prodigy wants to resolve this quickly. I promise you, this is not going to be something that they want to draw out. Because if you're going to force him to play under your name throughout the entire season, you want to win that case immediately so that you have the opportunity to sell his contract. Nobody's going to buy his contract if you're already at Worlds.
Right. Yeah, no,
He'll sell his
I
contract
get
for
that.
what? $10,000?
It'll be interesting to see because I'm kind of still riding on that train. Um, just sheer uh sheer will, I guess. But no,
Chat's wondering if Prodigy funds his travel expenses.
probably
And
not.
I'm
Considering that I remember seeing a post somewhere that his mom paid for him to go somewhere. Um, it was like a Silver Series event, and maybe that's not included. Maybe just the Pro Tour Elite Series were.
Elite Series National Tour,
Yeah, I just remember the one that he won. What was that?
Masters Cup,
Masters Cup at Santa
Santa Cruz,
Santa Cruz. That's it. Yeah, that
De
one.
La Viaga,
Yeah.
De La.
So, you know, I I maybe partially. I don't think all of it. Um, but I do
I'm sure
agree that it
they pay
hurts
for a
their
lot of it, but
reputation.
I doubt that they pay for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so with all that being said, I have one more thing to talk about,
Mhm.
and then we will move on because we're almost done with this episode. Actually, we took a little bit longer than I expected. Not that much longer,
We've
but a
actually
little bit.
done a little better on time than we normally have on like segment wise.
Yeah, but I scheduled a pretty long
Yeah, and
section
that's
for this.
probably why we did better.
I was well aware this was going to be a long segment.
And we
Okay,
still outran it.
last topic. How does Prodigy settle this amicably with the best saving face?
For them,
Yes, at this point. Not if they could go back and do it different. At the point where we currently stand, what is the best way to save face here? What do they do
they
now?
settle with Gannon outside of court. That's
What do they do? What's the settle? Do they bring in another company and let somebody buy out the contract quietly?
no. I think they make amends. I think that Business is
But
business.
what do you do? What do you do to make amends at this point? Because the thing is, you can't drop him at this point. You've
No.
put the lawsuit forward because you're losing money, so you need to get money from somebody somewhere,
Yeah, you put that.
and you can't make him. You're not going to make amends with him. I promise you, Gannon is gone.
Yeah, but I'm just saying to make them look the best. That's what they have to do, regardless of what it would take. That's what would make them look the best.
I
Now,
think the best opportunity is to allow somebody to buy out his contract under an NDA.
I don't think that that helps Prodigy look better.
It does because if you sign it under an NDA, then all you have to do is put in that NDA. Gannon is required to wait 2 weeks before announcing his new sponsorship with such and such brand. That company is responsible for paying the buyout of the contract. That company is not allowed to talk about that they purchased the contract. That company is not allowed to talk about that Gannon is signing with them because of this. We will not talk about this, this, and this, and everybody's happy. So it comes out that Gannon and Prodigy have reached a deal outside of court, and it is under an NDA. 2 weeks later, Gannon signs with Discraft. That is the best case scenario.
I disagree. Uh,
Well, what then? What's better? What do
I,
they do that's better?
well, I'm telling you, like them, because what if that was to happen? What is the difference between somebody knowing whether they let him go, they dropped the lawsuit, or if somebody bought them out, right? If it's an NDA, which if they let him go, they would probably not do an NDA, more than
Oh, they would.
likely. You think
No,
so?
they will. They would require an NDA if they
Regardless.
release him. If they release him outside without monetary transfer, in other words, they don't require Gannon Burr to pay damages
Yeah.
in a settlement. There will be an NDA
Okay. So,
because the NDA is basically what's going to protect them from Gannon. Remember how we talked about it would be funny if
yeah,
after
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
contract he starts putting Prodigy and hates me, and that the NDA is what protects him from that.
So there would technically be like a NDA cease and desist uh,
Essentially,
type of deal. Um,
guaranteed.
yeah,
I mean, that's gonna if they settle outside of court, there will be an NDA involved. That's you
yeah.
don't have to question about that.
Because they're hoping that somebody discloses something that way they can sue again.
Yeah.
Um, I, honestly though, if they do a buyout and say for instance that Gannon signs with somebody in 2 weeks, right after something comes out that they've they've agreed to whatever, right? And that's all we ever hear about it. Most of the general public is already going to know, okay, they took the money. That they found a way to get the money. Um, and that's all they were ever in it for, anyways. I don't. So the greed part
If
still comes in. I don't.
if they drop the contract and don't take the buyout money, so they just drop it on goodwill, how do they avoid that anyways? If they drop the contract and settle outside of court, Gannon is signing with a new company. There's no way to stop that. So if they
Right.
drop it in goodwill and don't take buyout money, they are not stopping that same conversation from happening. So you might as well take the money. That's what I'm saying.
I
Like
mean,
I
I
don't.
get that, but how does either way, if you're not going to stop that conversation from happening, that's not the best way that you look. Like that's
Yeah, so here's the thing though. We're talking about what can they do now that is the best way to save face
for
and
them to
still
come out
get
looking like they're still a reputable company.
yeah, but I mean there's no we're talking about post lawsuit. So this lawsuit's already happened.
Right.
They could drop the lawsuit, but then what? Then you don't get anything. You still get your 1.5 million in losses. The company is in turmoil. They probably lose and they probably fail. I don't think Kevin
As a
Jones and
company.
Kale LaVisca and Will Schustrick are enough to keep that company afloat at this point.
I don't either.
So you have to take the money.
I completely agree with business side of it, right? No, I'm on your side there. I'm talking about the way that it makes them look. Business side, I agree.
Yeah, but there's no way for them to, assumably, if we're on the same page, there's no way for them to not take the money and save face and survive.
That's kind of
So
what we're saying is like
what's
there's not a way.
so if they take some buyout money and they weather the storm of this next year,
I don't know if they make it.
I think they can.
They
100%.
would have to have some good backers.
I think you're talking they need to salvage 30 one third of the estimated loss in sales. So $500,000 buyout.
I think that's a good buyout for both Prodigy and whoever's buying it out. I feel like that's a
And I think that would be
fair amount of
that would
money.
that would be enough,
Um,
considering the from what I've seen, from the amount of people who are like, I do not think that the morality of this situation is enough to get me to stop throwing Prodigy. From the amount of response I've seen like that compared to the estimated loss that they're going to have, if they weather the storm, they take some money, settle outside of court, put on a happy face, Gannon puts on a happy face, they can get through this after a year of being quiet and
I
self-contained
think
if they take that money.
then they become like the new Pro Discus. I just
That's a better existence than filing for bankruptcy.
I guess I don't know. I mean, they they just drop
I
off of the face of the earth. Like,
not only do I see that as the best option, I see that as the only option.
I mean, definitely not the only option, but
The only option for them to survive with their name intact. And by name intact, I do mean literally if they want to be Prodigy, owned by Prodigy at the end of this year.
I don't know if somebody would. Yeah, yeah, no, somebody would buy the company before. Yeah, um,
Yes.
yeah.
Because Prodigy would
Yeah,
thrive under
only
new ownership.
it probably would because that would be how you
All
save
you have to
face.
do, all you, if, yeah, but that's not saving face. That's selling out your troubles.
That's like going to somewhere to try going to a restaurant that you was like, I really hated that place. And then it's like a big old banner up front. It's like under new
Under
management.
new ownership.
Hey, let's try that place again. You know what I mean? Like
And
that's
it was better.
and
But at
probably
least the first time.
all you have to do is fake it if you're Prodigy. Just be like,
Yeah.
hey, hey, Mr. VP, hey, you want in on this? Like,
Yeah.
we do the whole swapperoonie, you know? Stuff like that happens all the time.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
so
But
yeah, I
I
could
think
see that.
I think in terms of, if they're going to keep ownership and management of the company, and they're going to weather the storm of what they've created for themselves, they have to sell Gannon's contract, and they have to do it. Here's the thing: they do not save their faces, and they do not save the company if they win the lawsuit and then sell his contract, like I was talking about earlier. This has to be settled outside of court
You're
with an
right.
NDA where everybody walks away with a smiley face, and Gannon just happens to sign with a new company.
I mean, anybody with
Even
common sense
even
would
if it comes
know.
out, if they're like, we reached an agreement on Monday, he is no longer throwing Prodigy, and then on Tuesday somebody signs, it's too obvious. You do have to have that 2 week buffer. I'm saying where he goes out and you cannot announce a new signature, you cannot announce your new signing of Gannon for at least this many period of days.
Right.
That buffer has to be in there. If that buffer is not in there, then it doesn't do the job. You have to create the illusion of you did Gannon a solid by
Right.
settling outside of court and everybody's happy at the end.
I don't think they can do it. I don't think I I don't think they can come out looking good. I
No.
It'd be hard to do, but we'll see how it plays out.
All
It
right,
is
Yuli.
definitely interesting. It's got everybody's attention right now.
Sure does. We will keep you updated. We will probably not do a segment quite that long about it ever again, but we will
Well,
keep you updated as much as we hear.
you just tune in next week because it's about to get nasty. No, I'm kidding.
It's he knows something I don't.
Yeah.
It's,
Oh,
the next the supposed next official hearing isn't even until March, so if something's happening next week, I don't know about it. Okay.
just imagine we're in our tournament this weekend. We stop at break and something's happened
Where
during
our
the
phones are just
weekend.
blowing up.
Our phones are blowing up. It's like, you know, lawsuit over Gannon Burr has Prodigy has claimed whatever, or Burr's lawyers speaking out, Burr press conference. Like, oh,
Right?
it could happen.
Right? No, I totally get it. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, giving in your thoughts on that matter. We're gonna move on. I don't have again, we don't have an ad spot right here, so we're just gonna do shameless plugs. If you guys are listening to this and you are not listening live, i.e., you're listening on Anchor, you're listening on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your audio podcasts, just so you know, this is live on YouTube right now. I mean,
Right.
not the moment you're listening to it, but when we're recording this, it is live. You are always welcome to join us. We do keep our links in our descriptions. I'll make sure that Ethan is posting the link to our YouTube in the description of the audio version so that you guys can check it out. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you click the bell so that you are getting notifications for when we go live on YouTube. You are always welcome to join us and hop in our chat. Give us your thoughts, especially for things like Gannon. I mean, if you're listening right now and you were like, man, I wish I could have given them a piece of my mind about what I thought about Gannon, we would have loved to hear it. So make sure you guys are tuning in if you would like to join us live and give us your thoughts more often. We appreciate that. You can also find us on our socials. That is at TN2S, the number two. DG, that's going to be at Twitter. It's something very similar on Instagram. If not, there's an underscore somewhere, but it's somewhere around that. You should be able to recognize our logo at the very least. Give us a
Right.
search, give us a follow, interact with us. I don't know how much you've been posting on Instagram lately, but I guarantee you we're going to have a ton of Instagram posts after this next upcoming weekend
Yep.
because we are playing a Dubs event together, and we're going to have posts from that for sure.
Yeah.
As for Twitter, I had to turn my notifications on Twitter off this week because uh, I was getting too many notifications. I was beyond my reach this week with the Gannon Burr and everything that was happening. So, but you can
Alone in
always
here.
find me on Twitter, and yeah, so we appreciate that. Moving on, we're gonna make this. We had a 20 minutes scheduled for this segment. We no longer have 20 minutes for the segment, so we're gonna rush through this a little bit. But we're gonna go through our preseason power rankings for the 2023 season. We're gonna update these once a month. So expect us to update this somewhere around probably the first of the month. Whether that's a couple days before or a couple days after going forward. So we're gonna let this one settle for an extra week as we go in towards the Texas swing. But let's give our preseason rankings. No,
Yeah. You start off with your MPO, and I'll start off with my FPO. Like, you do MPO first, I'll do FPO first.
all right. So, um, listen, gosh, this is so hard.
Yeah, it's just top 5.
Well, it's not just that it's top five. Is I My original pick was Ricky. I mean, I think you still have to keep Ricky at the number one on your power rankings right now after the season that he had last year. But going down with we didn't even talk about it when we covered All Stars, but Ricky thoroughly missed All Stars with a Lyme flare up, allegedly. And so he's missing that. He is also already officially dropped for LVC. So we are not going to see him at LVC. And I don't know. Do you think that flare up to start the season drops him from number one?
I do.
All right, then I'm going to pick Paul.
Yeah.
Paul number one, and I'm gonna preface that with Paul is number one purely based off the fact that Ricky is not here.
See,
Because Ricky deservedly should be number one right now. But not being present is uh, not how you get yourself high in the power rankings. Because remember, power rankings are not just about how good you are. It also includes a recency bias, and recency bias says he ain't here, bro.
yep.
What about number two? What do you got for number two?
Um, so you want to do your top 5, then I do my top 5, or?
I think we'll do them collectively. This will be the Tennessee Twos top five.
Okay.
So
Um.
this is open for debate,
Okay.
if you will. So if you have Paul as a different, as somebody else at number one, feel free.
Um. No, not necessarily. I had Paul at one. Um.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not gonna argue with that one too much. But is Ricky out of the top five
No,
for
I think
recency?
at the very, I think at the very worst,
He's third.
he seals up five itself. If you really want to keep him in the five, and
Okay.
just we'll say, well, I'm gonna put him at five
We'll put him at five then.
right now.
Okay. We'll put
We're just
Paul
gonna
at
say he's
one,
five because
Ricky at
he's
five.
hurt, he can't play, but he is still the best player from last year, which means he has to be on the list no
Okay.
matter what.
I like that. Um. So I'm gonna go with Calvin.
Okay.
Um.
I'm not gonna dispute that at all.
I
I agree with that.
Calvin it was consistent as it gets last year. So with what you prefaced about Ricky and Paul being now scooted to one, I feel like Calvin is that spot, uh, right behind Paul now.
I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. So we've got 3 and 4 left,
Yep, and I
and I
know
think I think it's a pretty clear debate between 2 players. It's just about who we put where, and I think it's Gannon Burr, Simon Lizotte.
both of those are was my must-haves.
So the thing is this is really, really hard because with Ricky's injury, do you bump him up to number 3 knowing Gannon Burr is going through mental stress and Simon Lizotte is struggling with changing brands
Is he struggling?
for the sake of the conversation?
I don't think he's struggling. I was gonna put
I'm
Simon at
I'm I'm
three,
not I'm
Gannon
I
at
don't mean
four.
I don't mean like struggling in the sense of like, oh, he's looks bad. I mean struggling as in he's wrestling with that.
Right.
It is actively he is learning his disc still. So
I
do you
think that
think
makes
there's
him
any
better.
way it could, might not.
It might
Uh
not. It clearly might not, but I personally think that it does
yeah.
because that means that he's
So
got more focus and attention to detail.
yeah, but you have to remember that with his as his it is his first year with this new bag, he has to learn every biome as he gets there and adjust his discs to the new biome. He's, in other words, my point being is that he has never thrown these discs in Vegas before. Vegas is a specific elevation, specific temperature, specific wind, specific humidity. And this will be the first time he throws them there. Same thing as he goes to this place, Waco, as he goes to Portland, as he comes to Tennessee, as he goes this that. It's the first time he will throw these discs in every individual biome in the U.S. For it'll be his first time. So how is he going to be able to adjust to that? And my only question is that is he more likely to succeed through that diversity than Gannon Burr is through his mental diversity of the lawsuit?
Yes.
Why?
Um,
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just asking for an
I would
intellectual argument
I
as to
would
why.
say simply for the fact of more experience. Um, he has experience in all of these places. He's played there before. He knows what they do to his discs. And you can't tell me right now, even though they fly different, he has linked all of his MVP discs back to something that Discmania does. It it's gonna happen. It's happened already. Um, I know that. It's just that's common sense. So
Yeah,
with
but
that
I
being
mean, I'll
said,
be fair. For when the MVP that I have thrown flew wildly different in Nevada compared to my other discs than my discs that I have in MVP flies here. For example, I had a photon that was like wildly stable
yeah, now it
in
flies
Nevada,
like crazy good.
which no, it was wildly stable as in like dead straight, like stable, not overstable or understable, but actually the true definition of stable. It was straight. Got out here and it was a beef hook, which is the exact opposite of what it should have been because things fly overstable at higher elevations.
Yeah, I don't know
And it
what
could have
happened to
just
your
been
yeah.
gyro works different regardless, and so it's just different. And I'm not saying Simon won't be able to you know fight through that. I'm just saying you have confidence that he will throw that better than Gannon will throw with his mental gymnastics he has to play this season.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm trying to create an intellectual argument as to the reasoning behind it.
And that's my reasoning, honestly. I think it just clearly comes down
I
to
don't have anything I don't have anything to say
experience.
against it. You might be right, you might be wrong. I'm okay with it though.
Yep.
I think
There's only
I
one
think
way
for
to
all
find
intents and
out.
purposes, I don't have a good enough argument to override that.
Right. And this is just the first one, right?
This is
This
the hardest one because
this
we
is
don't
the
have
hardest one.
previous. Obviously we all of these players that we're ranking were at All Stars. So Ricky is the one that gets a free ticket
Yeah.
because he should be number one.
Right. And honestly, you've got both Eagle and Chris knocking knocking at that door. So um
Yeah, I think you definitely have Chris knocking on that door,
and
and
Eagle's kind of
Eagle
like your
looked really
wild
good
card,
out there.
you know? It's
Yeah,
like because I agree. Like, I don't think that he should be plopped in after, even if he wins Las Vegas Challenge, right? I don't necessarily think that he gets plopped in. If
if
he does,
Eagle
it's at fifth.
if
Um,
well the thing is that's why we're only doing this once a month because if you look at that, like let me pull up the schedule. The next time that we do our power rankings will be April 1st. So we will have seen
April
Vegas,
Fools.
Waco, Austin, and Texas States. So the next one we do will be the Tuesday that we preview Music City Open. That will be our next power ranking.
Right.
So obviously, we don't have to worry about plopping him up in the power rankings because we're not even going to talk. I mean, we might mention power rankings here and there throughout, but we won't do another official power rankings until Music City Open, basically. So
Right before Music City. Yeah.
If he wins Vegas and even if he just wins Vegas and he stays healthy and plays decent for Waco and Open, that might be enough for Eagle to move into the top five.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see how his health goes, and uh, I, supposedly it's made a huge difference that he is not vegan anymore. So we'll kind
As
of
it
get to
should
see.
have.
Yeah, we'll get to
He's getting
see.
complex amino acids in his body.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? All right, so official MPO Tennessee Twos Power Rankings preseason edition MPO is
Paul
Paul
Macbeth,
McBeth,
Calvin
Calvin
Heimberg,
Heimberg, Simon Lazat,
Hut,
Gannon
Gannon
Burr,
Burr,
Ricky
Ricky
Wysocki.
Wysocki.
Ricky Wysocki is going to need to get healthy if he doesn't want to get kicked off. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
Chat's in here agreeing with us. Johnny Disc Golf had Paul, Calvin, Simon, and Gannon as well in that order.
Yeah.
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 All
All right. Uh,
right.
on
FPO.
FPO, I think it's pretty. I mean, if you're gonna argue against Kristen being one, I could see you arguing that. I,
Um,
I
so I don't have a problem putting her at number one in the preseason rankings, but I would imagine she won't stay there because she is not going to be stateside for LVC or the Texas Swing. I don't believe. So she will likely be dethroned simply for absence.
right.
But I have no problem putting her number one to start because she's earned it and
Yes.
she's healthy, from what I understand.
Yes.
It's not like Ricky where Ricky is dropping because of health. Kristen is just not going to be there.
Yeah.
So sure, I will put her at number one. I have no argument against that.
All right.
Um, who then goes to number two though?
So, um, this is kind of weird, right? Because this is your normal spot where you'd want to say Paige or Cat. Um,
Yeah.
but in all honesty, like my preseason power rankings, I don't know what page is gonna come out like, right? We don't know what page we're gonna see.
No.
Um, the safe pick is to put own there. Uh, but I'm willing to be a little risky. It's kind of up to you. Because own is the Calvin, right? I it's very consistent. Um,
Mm,
probably honestly like a number 3 or 4 slot.
yeah, I think you put Katrina there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think based on her play towards the end of the season, um, she was more consistent, I would say, than Paige was. So I know you're dropping Paige. He, I don't know. Own is the best putter,
that's
but
it's
she just doesn't have what the distance that she needs to be that high up on the list. You know what I mean?
yeah. She did win a world championship last year. So we're putting Kristen at 1, Kat at 2, Own at 3, Paige at 4.
No, I think I don't know. It's so hard. So if you look at the first half of Paige's season, then she definitely deserves to be in the top 5 for the preseason. If you look at the second half of her season, she doesn't.
Yeah, I know. That's
So how much of the recency bias are we going to use? Are we going to look at 2022 as a whole versus what she looked like down the stretch?
I mean,
Because you could make an argument for Hannah Blomroos, you can make an argument for Holland Handley, for Valerie Mandujano, even though she's hurt.
right.
There's a lot of arguments that you can make. So it's just about how much do those 4 or 5 Paige wins last year mean when they happened early in the season and she dropped off?
I don't know. Um, it, I honestly I think she probably deserves the 4 slot in my opinion.
Put her
Um,
there.
yeah. Because there's so many people that could potentially go in this 5th slot. Um, there's not like a huge standout to me. Um, I, eh, I I would personally put Valerie there, but she is hurt, so
Right.
it's it's hard to put her there. You could slide Missy Gannon in. Um,
It wouldn't, yeah, there would be nothing wrong with sliding Missy in.
there would be
Nothing
nothing
wrong
wrong with
with,
sliding Henna in. There would be nothing wrong with sliding Holland Hanley in my opinion. Um,
you know,
I
I think that's about as low on the
yeah,
world rankings as I'm willing to go, probably.
right. That's
I think
yeah, I'm with that. I don't know. I mean,
let's put Missy in there.
think so?
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Missy didn't really get that big signature win last year, but she was always there.
Yeah, she
She
played
kept
well.
herself on her power rankings for a lot of the season, just like Owen did, without a win, simply because she was present.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to kind of give her that shore up final spot based on that.
With Valerie,
Um,
with the note that Valerie is hurt.
yeah, with the note that if Valerie was not injured, she would probably be in that spot.
Whereas Ricky, uh,
In fact, actually, if Valerie wasn't, I would probably have her closer to
to 3,
4 or 3.
3 or 4. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. But
Well, no,
that's
no, actually, yeah, yeah, 4. I
I
want to
would
say
put
because
her with.
she's a 3 with a disc company change, so 4.
Okay, yeah, I kind of forgot about the swap. Um, yeah, no, you're right. I would, yeah,
So
I would
she's like
put
the
her there.
honorable mention for this one because of the injury.
Yeah. So
Whereas Ricky was the reason why Ricky stays on the list, even though he's not playing with injury, is
because he
because
know
he
he
was the clear
was
number
number
one.
1.
He's clearly number one. If he didn't start the season injured,
Yeah,
so
I agree with that.
So
Completely.
unfortunately, the same thing's going to happen to poor Kristen. Not being injured, but missing the first few events, she's going to get knocked down a peg just for it,
Unless she
which
plays one of
doesn't
them.
mean much. It doesn't, yeah, and it doesn't mean much because even if she skips the Texas swing and doesn't come around until April, all she needs, given her current status in the power rankings, is a single win back in the stateside to kick back up to one, even if she
Yeah,
gets knocked out of it.
I completely agree. Completely agree. All right.
All right, so
It was Kristen Tatar at 1, Katrina Allen at 2, Owen Scoggins at 3, Paige Pierce at 4, and Missy Gannon at 5.
let's do it.
Round them out.
Let's do the dang thing. Will you take a picture of that and send it to me too? I'm gonna put a graphic on Twitter.
Uh, you sure don't want this handwriting?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna make a graphic. That's just to remember our official list.
Yeah. Picture has been taken.
Sweet. All right. So let's round out the night. LVC is nothing special. Look, the biggest note in terms of LVC is that they're playing 2 courses instead of 3 this year, which is kind of exciting.
Still
Basically
4
just
rounds, right?
means, yeah, still 4 rounds. They just are only going to be playing the Infinite and Innova course as opposed to the Infinite Innova and what is it, Millennium?
I
Was
don't.
Millennium the other
I
course?
don't know.
I think so. Yeah, something like that. So they're only playing 2 courses this year.
Was
A
it
lot
the
of players are
factory
really happy
second
about that.
store? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yep, sorry.
I don't. I
The
mean, I
end
can
of
look
a
it up if you really
factory
want.
course.
Could have been. Might be. Might have been 2022. Now I have to know because
I don't think it was Millennium, but I don't know clearly enough what it was to argue you.
it was the Millennium. Suck it.
Was it?
Yep. Round 3 was played on the Millennium course
I've never heard that.
because Millennium's the other Innova manufactured brand.
No,
It's
I get it.
Infinite Millennium and Innova. Come on, get it together here.
I get
Well,
it.
who's naming? Who the hell is naming a course the factory second course?
I
Come on,
mean,
bro.
it
That
sounds
would
cool to
be.
me.
Oh gosh, that's why you're not a marketing genius.
I am, actually. Thank you. Ha!
We agree to disagree. Um, so all right. For reference, last year Jer Gibson took it down. Gannon came in second. You guys all remember that thrilling finish. Calvin Heimberg was in third, and Luke Humphreys rounded out the top 4, along with Kevin Jones. That was really his only good finish for the first half of the season for Kev. FPO was taken down by Katrina Allen, seconded by Paige Pierce. Kristen Tatar took third. Haley King took fourth, and Solonen rounded out the top 5. So, are we gonna try to get that game on the road this year, where we both pick our top 3 for for MPO and FPO in the Grip 6 challenge and see who has the most points at the end?
We should do that, yeah.
Let's do that. That's gonna be our game. So for our predictions this year, we're always gonna pick a winner. And then we'll kind of do some other stuff. But that's what we're gonna do is we're gonna use our Grip 6 challenge and determine a winner throughout the year, every single Elite Series at least, via who scored better on their Grip 6 and picks lock in one day. So let's get
Yeah.
into it.
Okay.
Do you want to go first for MPO? You want me to go first?
Um, so this is me versus you, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And we can use the same players or no.
We sure can. We can use the same
Okay.
players.
Um, and how many MPO, how many FPO? 3 and 3?
3 and 3.
Okay. All right. You can go first.
All right. I'm gonna pick Calvin Heimberg to win.
Okay.
It's a really not a good pick because Heimberg. I don't know. It's a mid pick. It's not. It's somewhat safe, but it's a little dangerous in that he's probably not the favorite to win right now.
Right.
Um, and then I'm gonna pick Simon to come in second and Eagle to come in third.
Okay. Well, I had Simon, Eagle, and Paul. So yeah,
Okay.
there's that. Simon to win it.
All right. In FPO, I'm gonna pick Valerie Mandahano to
Wait, I go first here.
win. She's not. I don't think
Uh,
she's gonna be there. She
she
is still on the
she is.
registered list.
I said it last week. She's still on there. I think she's going to
She
play.
has it. She has a tea time. I don't. I'm not confident that she'll be there. I think Ricky still has a tea time too, actually.
I think she's gonna play. I
But
truly do.
I wouldn't. I don't know that I would trust her anyways.
Um.
But go ahead.
So I. Whoop, I'm going to pick Katrina Allen to win it. Owen Scoggins in second, and I'm going to pick Cat Merch as my third.
Okay. 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 Okay.
I know this is your henna pick, so
My henna.
yeah,
I'm actually gonna pick Holland Hanley to win.
I like that.
No particular reason. Just to do something a little bit different. Um, I am going to pick. Wow, I'm going really off the rails here. Katrina Allen for second, Macy Faladias for third.
There you go.
So that'll be interesting. And safe picks. What are your? Let's see. How many total strokes under par will MPO and FPO be?
Um, so I'm going to say 66.
That's a pretty solid pick. I'm gonna go 69.
Ah, nice.
All right.
All
What about
right.
dark horse picks? And then we'll get this on the road. I know you got dinner waiting for you,
Yep,
so
I do.
let's get out of here.
So my dark horse pick in uh in FPO is Deanne Carey. Uh,
All right.
and then MPO, my dark horse pick is gonna be. Oh, see, I don't know if that's technically a dark horse.
Just give it to me. I'll
Nico.
rip you for it. It's like halfway there.
It's like it is,
It's almost a dark horse, but it's just not
but
like
it's
quite a dark horse, but it
right
still almost qualifies. It's like it's it's not bad enough for me to argue with it being a dark horse, but it's probably not a dark horse.
because
So I'll let it slide.
yeah, because
I'm
I
okay with it.
assumed that you were gonna go with Brody. I just didn't know.
I am not actually.
Really, that surprises
Yeah.
me.
So Brody played almost no disc golf this offseason. He focused on his health. So he is probably not going to be able to put together his disc golf game until closer to Belton, maybe Texas State. Um, so I would not expect him to finish. I'm going to say Brody finishes around the 50s. My FPO dark horse is Kona Panis.
I like it.
Um, I think look for her to come back with a little bit of a vengeance this season, and yeah, see how that goes.
I hope she does,
My
man. I truly do. Like,
my MPO dark horse is going to be. Hmm, I'm gonna go really off the cuff here. You're gonna be like, "Whoa," but I have a reason, and then you'll be like, "Ah, that makes sense." My MPO dark horse is gonna be Connor O'Reilly,
okay,
and
that's not crazy.
the only reason Connor O'Reilly is my dark horse is because he's replacing Ricky in my fantasy league this week because of Ricky's wrist, and I need him to play well.
So you're
So
doubling
Connor, if you're
down,
listening,
doubling
play
down.
well, please. I need it. You were my fourth out kind of there we go situation.
Connor's gonna be
He's my only replacement because all my other replacements are European and there's like only 3 or 4 Euros at this event and most of them are on the FPO side.
is
So
Niklas not there?
uh
This is an
yeah, I think
event I
he
could
is, but
see him
I don't
doing well.
I don't think I have Nicholas on my fantasy league,
Yeah.
but I think he is there. He's one of the only ones. But I don't like. There's no Linus. There's no Lottie. Um,
Laddie. Laddie.
there is a Vino.
Yeah.
Jackie Chen is going to be there
Hadn't heard as
again.
much about that one this time. I remember that was
Uh,
huge, huge news last year.
but he's kind of been spending some time.
Yeah, over in California.
Mhm. So, all right. Well, um,
That just about
I
does
mean
it.
that's pretty much it.
How did we still
Next
go
week we're
over
going to be
2 hours?
covering
Like, I don't
Gannon Burr.
understand how we're doing it.
Gannon Burr. We spent 50 minutes on Gannon Burr.
Yeah,
So
it's
come on,
understandable.
there's no who would have thought, like when I originally wrote the schedule for what we were going to talk about in this episode, well, who would have thought that Prodigy was just going to just drop that bomb of a lawsuit
Yeah,
and drop the information in the lawsuit that they did? Okay, come on. We
it
spent
it
we
it
spent a
was.
good 20 minutes just laughing at the expense of Prodigy
You're
in
not
this episode.
wrong. You're not
Okay.
wrong. Yeah, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Got to throw that in there. They throwing
Why?
around.
I'm not sponsored. I'm not
They're
sponsored by
no,
them.
they're throwing around lawsuits. So we just
Yeah, but I don't have a contract with them.
no crossing our T's, dotting
What are they?
our
What are they going to
I's.
do? Offer a cease and desist? With the worst, we delete this episode. Okay.
Right.
Hopefully, y'all listen to it before that cease and desist is ordered. So, hey,
Hey.
um, next week we are going to be recapping LVC. We are going to be recapping our own Tennessee State Dubs Championship. It's going to rain all day. It's going to be great. We're really excited for it. I tried to tweet at the Disc Golf Gods. They said we can't do anything for you. You have to talk to those guys, meaning the weather guys. So
Yeah.
they didn't do anything to help me out. So I get it. I know that's not your job, but maybe next time just help a little bit more. I don't know.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't think there's any Pro Tours. I think it's Memorial the week after that. We probably won't talk about Memorial too much in a preview. Um, we might talk about the fall of Memorial next week.
Yeah, maybe a little
Make a
bit.
little story time. A little
Yeah.
little a little Grandpa Bacon story time.
Oh, wow. I hadn't brought that out in a minute. Also, you hadn't hit your baseball reference today yet.
Yeah, I did.
Did you?
I had a baseball reference somewhere in the Gannon segment. I think it was probably very, 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 very subtle.
Because I know I have people that they're like, "Oh, he didn't do it." I'm like, "Yeah, he did,"
Yeah, I
but
did.
but I didn't hear it this time. I'm just
If I did, it was very subtle. But I mean, I was just
yeah.
I don't know. So I had a lot of references this week in terms of like the Gannon stuff. If you want a reference
Just hit him with a
on
changeup
on
or something
Twitter,
real quick.
on
It's fine.
Twitter, I mean, shoot, the amount of times that people started coming at me. Like I had somebody, I tweeted at Drew Gibson. I was like, "Hey, Drew, do you think that there's a chance that they're running this lawsuit just so that they can have the opportunity to sell his contract, so that they don't just lose everything by letting him walk?" Somebody came at me and they were like, "Well, that's an interesting sales plan. That wouldn't do that." And I was like, "Why?" And they were like, "Well, the rule for selling is to sell high, and right now they're going to be in a sell low situation." And I'm like, as opposed to the opposite of letting them walk. And he's like, "Well, I mean, no, but the rule about selling contracts or trading in any sport is that you sell high. You sell when they're worth a lot, and you don't sell when they're not worth a lot." I'm like, he's never going to be worth a what do you think this is? NFL? MLB?
Right.
This isn't Major League Baseball, okay? They're not trading a couple of players across the field for this guy. All right. You're talking about they are trying to save a little bit of money that they just lost. Okay. Okay, I was just trying to do a little bit of this and the thing and the that, and he's like, but that doesn't. That's the rule is you sell high, and I'm like, okay, well, I can't argue with you about this anymore. So
You hit your baseball thing. All right, we're
that's a
good.
wrap. So
Thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate you all. Everybody have a great rest of your day, night, weekend, whatever it is. Get out there, go play some disc golf, and we will see y'all on the next hole. Peace.
peace.